Awesome. Hi, everyone. This is eComm Unfiltered. I'm your host, Katie Deter. I'm so excited today to have Kate Morton with Funk It Wellness. We've had the pleasure of meeting her a few times just from some local events. She joined us for a panel discussion featuring all women-owned businesses in Austin. And we're so excited to have you here today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I know, I feel like you do all the things with 8Fig and we love having you. So I'm really excited you're here.
Yeah, I love 8Fig. We've had so much fun. All of our events this year have been killer.
I know. And before we hopped on and started recording, we were talking about doing another one. So love it. Cool. So we can go ahead and dive in with some questions. So first off, I would just love to hear more about Funk It Wellness and the story of how you got started. I've heard it before and it's just such a great story to share. So I'm sure our audience would love to hear it.
Yeah. So my name's Kate. I'm a hormone dietitian. Definitely did not set out to start a business. So if you're listening and you're like, I'm interested in starting a business, but I have no experience, welcome to the club. That was 100% me. I actually had no intention of, when I started this journey on hormone wellness, of starting a company, but I was seeing private clients at the time. I got off birth control. I had pretty much every symptom in the book: cramps, hormonal acne, a super irregular cycle. And I just started missing a lot of work and missing out on a lot of opportunities because of it. So I started digging deeper and thinking, what can I do to improve my menstrual cycle? How can I have a period that I don't hate? And that's kind of where Funk It evolved from, after talking to a lot of friends and going to a lot of doctor's visits and looking at the supplements that were currently on the market. I just didn't feel like our needs were being met. Everything was artificial, lab made, didn't have the correct bioavailability, wasn't in the correct dosages, and it wasn't food-based. And our bodies absorb food so much better than they absorb artificial, chemicals and substances that are in the other vitamins. And so that is how Funk It was born. And the name came from everyone telling me that it was too niche and nobody cared about periods. And I was like, funk that. They totally do. It's over half the population that has a period. So that's a little background on us.
Love it. So can you tell us a little more about each line of products you have and just some of the benefits they have for women's health?
Yeah. So our very first product, and definitely still our hero product, is our seed cycling kits. And if you haven't heard of seed cycling, it has been around for a long time. It's a very, very organic, natural, holistic approach to menstrual cycle management, and then also syncing your nutrition with your hormones. If you're on TikTok, I know you've heard of that lately. And so what it does is it looks at your cycle in 2 parts. Even though there are technically 4 parts, we're going to just break it down into your estrogen and your progesterone. So for seed cycling, from the first day of your period till when you ovulate, you have organic pumpkin and flaxseed. And then after ovulation to your next period, organic sesame and sunflower seed. And that actually, so there's a lot of research out there that a lot of PMS and negative cyclical symptoms are related back to nutrient deficiencies. And so what it does is it gives you the correct nutrition for those 2 hormones, and it makes it really easy. You just eat it on top of your food. We tell you exactly how to do it. It's very simple. Then we have Cycle Bites, which is great for if you're on birth control or you don't really want to start tracking your cycle. It's a 1-a-day, 100% food-based women's multivitamin that comes from all real food sources. And then we've got a perimenopause line. If you're in perimenopause and your cycle started to change and you're not quite sure what's going on, helps with hot flashes, dryness, all the lovely things that happen as our hormones kind of go through another chaotic period. And then we have maca powder, which is for energy, vitality, and libido.
Amazing. What kind of feedback have you gotten? Just because I've been trying the Cycle Bites after we first met, and I've really enjoyed them, and I've already seen definitely a change in my health. What kind of feedback have you gotten, or just have you seen a lot of women come to you with questions?
Yeah. So, we have thousands of customers at this point, and it's so cool because I get to talk to them pretty much every day because, it's Instagram or my email or reviews. And I think one of the coolest things, product by product, seed cycling kits, we've had a few reviews where people are like, I was about to get a hysterectomy and this literally changed the game for me and I don't need that anymore. Also for fertility, it's really cool to get emails like, your products help me conceive. I'm going to pause for now because I'm pregnant or having a baby. So that was really exciting. And then for Cycle Bites, for postpartum periods, we've gotten great feedback for people on birth control who are looking for a multivitamin, and then also pain reduction and mood improvement with Cycle Bites. So they've got, plant-based B12, plant-based vitamin D, reishi mushroom. So they've got all these amazing things for stress support, which in turn supports your menstrual cycle. And so that's been amazing. The Maca reviews are awesome. You should go read them on the website. I mean, I think libido is like an underrated thing that we don't talk about that much because it's a sign of health and vitality, but it's very taboo. And so
Yeah.
it's cool to be able to talk about that. And then the perimenopause, the biggest thing we get is hot flash reduction, which that is just like the coolest feedback because hot flashes are so disruptive. You know, you think about you're presenting at work and then you break out into a full body sweat and need to leave. Like, that's not cool. Like, why aren't we talking about that? So that's just like a little bit of feedback from each product. And it's really cool to see how it can help people.
Yeah, I love like just everything you're doing. You're just helping so many women and it's really super impressive. So cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. You touched on it a little bit, but like what got you like super passionate about what you're doing and like helping women and creating products to do that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, selfishly, it was when I started experiencing the products on or the problems on my own, and I couldn't find products that I felt comfortable taking. You know, I am that person who's reading the label, doing the research, looking for, you know, lab testing, all these different things. And so for me, it just like I had been on birth control my entire life and I had dealt with negative side effects of birth control, but I never really dealt with the negative side effects that can come with hormone imbalance. And I was just so frustrated. I was 23 years old. I was getting started in my career and I was being in my own eyes seen as unreliable because every single month I was having to take a day off work because my cramps were so intense. And so, you know, selfishly, I just started wanting to help myself. And then I started talking to my friends. I started wanting to help my friends. And then before I knew it, I was helping random people on the internet. And, you know, that's kind of just where the passion came from was we have research. We know what can support the menstrual cycle. We're just not doing it. Like the current consumer-based products aren't serving that customer adequately.
Right. And like you touched on it a little bit, but I see on TikTok a lot, you know, women posting about seed cycling and just talking about things like libido and all these different things that for women, it's kind of like, okay, we're supposed to stay quiet about it. We're not supposed to talk about it. We're supposed to go to work with these horrible cramps, or we're supposed to feel essentially terrible and just get through the day. So I think it's great, like people like you just kind of bringing it to people's attention, you know?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I want everyone to feel like they have a safe space to be able to talk about these things because a lot of people, we like go and talk to our grandma, our mom, and they're like, oh, that's how my period is. It's normal. And, you know, then we never go out and talk about it. And then you could be living with debilitating cramps and potentially endometriosis and have no idea.
Right. Exactly. It's like, you're not really supposed to have pain. You're not supposed to feel these things. So I think it's great that we're, you know, putting it out there and, you know, talking about it more. Cool. Well, I'll switch gears a little bit. So tell us about like kind of like your marketing strategy and how you're promoting it. Are you on TikTok? Are you using Instagram? What's kind of working for you?
Yeah. So a big focus for us is, and the reason we started this company was to help people. And so community has been a big source of excitement for us. And it's definitely something we invest a lot of time into. So our organic social channels, TikTok, Instagram, you know, that's kind of where we've been our bread and butter since we started our business. And we're still like a very lean company and we're really focused on profitability. And so we look at like, where can we reach the most people for the least amount of money, being bootstrapped still. So organic social, we love. I love Pinterest, to be honest. Like I love Pinterest and I love the educational content that comes with it. And a big part of our strategy was education and still is education. So we do a lot of free downloadable resources. I love going on podcasts. We have our own podcast and, you know, anywhere we can educate someone for free, like we want to show up and be there and kind of be able, because our products don't make sense without the education. And then the truth is that a lot of us didn't receive this education. So we're like, how can we meet our consumer where they are, provide that education, and then show them, okay, well, here's some options we have for you if you're interested.
Love it. Love it so much. So you kind of talked on like community. What are you doing sort of locally, kind of in the Austin community? Are there events you attend or are you doing like product giveaways or anything like that sort of in the Austin area?
Yeah, our goal is like we like to host at least one event a month. So one we've got coming up is like a cycle, aligning your cycle and nutrition and yoga with our friend Danica, who's at YTX. You know, events like we did with you to connect with other founders. But really, like our goal is just once a month at least. We're a really small team. So it's like we wish we could go do an event every day. But, you know, what can we make time for once a month to really sit and connect? We love working markets too. Markets are an underrated way to get product feedback. So like you can instantly, like someone tries your product and gives you that feedback. If you're just doing it through the internet, that can take weeks.
Right.
Like it can take weeks to get that customer feedback.
Yeah, because you're waiting for them to like really try it, and then you want them to be able to try it for maybe like a month or two to really give you feedback. So I love the markets too, just for like other products. I love to support local, and there's always a lot of local businesses, but then like you said, you get that feedback like instantly. I saw you did a TED Talk. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Just because I think that's really cool, and kind of like how you got offered that opportunity.
Giving a TED Talk was probably the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
I can imagine that's like really scary.
And like I love public speaking, but the thing about a TED Talk is it needed to make sense, and it needed to be 10 minutes, and it needed to make sense for 10 minutes. I love like Q&A style. I love like something I can just hop on and like go off the cuff, and a TED Talk is not that.
No.
And I had actually just gotten back from recording a series on a TV show, and then I had the TED Talk 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later. And I really had to prepare for the first part of the TV show. And so I really had 2 weeks to prepare for my TED Talk. I literally started writing my TED Talk on the plane ride home from LA. And so I was like, okay. And then it evolved. And Shelby, who curated the TED Talk, was so generous with me because as I started writing, I was like, I went to her and I'm like, I know I pitched you this one idea, but I really think that like education and body literacy, like the lack of it, are why we have a period stigma. Can I talk about that? And she was like, yep, get me a draft. Let's go through it. And she allowed me to change it. And so it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. And it actually really, I ended up, if you go watch the TED Talk, I ended up talking about my first period story, which, it's a really interesting thing. I started my period really early. I was super ashamed of it. I was super embarrassed of it. I didn't understand what was going on in my body. I felt so different than my friends. A lot of people felt this. I've never really talked about my first period story, even with all the work I did. And so I think that there was a lot of like inner child healing as I was writing that TED Talk because I had to connect back with my 10-year-old self to put myself in that mindset. And I ended up showing a photo of myself at 10, like when I started, I think it was 5th grade, like for the TED Talk, and just seeing that young, like little girl on a screen and thinking like I was so mean and hard on myself from such an early age. So that was an interesting part of writing the TED Talk. And then also like a big part of my TED Talk was looking at like references and pop culture, because I really believe the way pop culture talks about our bodies, our hormones, like we mimic because we see it from an early age. There are so many period and PMS negative scenes in the early
everywhere.
2000s pop culture. So yeah, it was a crazy experience. And my friend Shelby, who's given a TED Talk before, it's absolutely amazing. She kind of like looped me in on this. She helped me so much with the whole process. And then I learned I can't memorize things. I needed just an outline. So that was like a big learning. I think I rewrote the whole talk the day of the talk.
Oh, no. That's stressful.
Yeah, but it was a really fun experience, and I was really grateful to be a part of it. And it was definitely a bucket list item. I couldn't believe that it happened.
That it's honestly just so incredible. And I think, again, just like, I've said it a bunch, but just like you even bringing up that topic and like talking about your first period when you're 10 years old. And I think just so many women can relate to it and just like totally understand it. And like you said, in pop culture, it's always like, oh, you're just PMSing, or like, oh, why are you being like mean? And it's just like, it has such a negative connotation to it. So again, I've said it like 5 times on this podcast, but like what you're doing and just like bringing it to light is really honestly so great. So keep doing you.
Honestly, that makes me feel so good, because some days I'm like, why am I building this business? Does anybody care? Like, it's like, being a founder can be really lonely sometimes. And sometimes you have to get reconnected to like why you're doing it, because, I didn't set out to change the world through looking at my P&L, like that. Right. I didn't think those two things are going to be connected.
Yeah. But like here you are running your own business and again, educating people. And so crushing it. Kind of speaking of your business, what are some of the like kind of back on the e-commerce side of things? Like what are some of the challenges or hurdles you had to jump when, running your own business online?
Okay. So many. So I'll just like lay it out there for you guys. I'm a dietitian. I've got a master's degree in human clinical nutrition, and I never took a business class. Like I did not take one marketing class, one business class, I took one computer class, one.
Yeah.
And I think what I would tell anybody is, you don't have to have that. I mean, sure, I'm sure a fancy MBA would have been like super helpful for this. Like,
Sure.
I'm sure I would have learned a lot. But there's so many resources out there now. Like, my whole time as a founder, like, it's interesting. When I first started my company, I didn't want anyone to know I didn't know. So I would get on a call, I'd pretend I knew what I was talking about. I would get off the call and vigorously write down everything I didn't understand. I would Google it and teach it to myself. Now I've got a little bit more confidence where I can be like, hey, can you explain that to me? Like, I think my biggest challenge was just not knowing the lingo. I didn't even know what, D2C was or CPG, like all of these,
Right.
direct to consumer, consumer packaged goods. Like, I didn't know these acronyms and I felt like I couldn't ask. So yeah. And building a website on Shopify is like really hard for anyone who's wondering. And
Any tips?
I remember finding a good designer. And then I remember when I first launched Funkit, we like launched it and I was like, I just had this dream that thousands of people are going to like flood to our website and like buy our product. And like, that's not how it works, in case you're wondering, like, at all.
Yeah.
You have to put together a marketing plan. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if that really coherently answers the question, but like, I literally knew nothing. And so I think I just Googled a lot. I found mentors who are willing to work with me, willing to teach me, willing to take me under their wing. I was transparent with my team when I didn't understand things, and I still have a lot to learn, a lot.
Yeah. It sounds like you have like a lot of great, or just even people I've met, like you have a lot of great like resources in Austin, and whether that's like investors or just mentors or people that you work with. So it sounds like you have like a great support team. And I just know for me personally, I learn by doing and asking questions. And I think as women, I feel like, I don't know if it's a woman thing, maybe it's just a me thing, but it is like kind of uncomfortable to ask questions when you feel like you're supposed to be the expert. But it really is okay to ask questions. That's how you learn.
It's so hard because like I was young, I was a woman, and I just didn't want to look stupid. Like, I didn't want people to think I was an idiot. And, and I also had a lot of imposter syndrome. And I was like, I just feel like I don't belong here. And like, I want to be smart. I know what I'm talking about. And I think over the past 3 years, I've learned like it's so much better just to like, what did you mean by that? Could you explain that to me? And like really ask the question, because you look a lot dumber when you pretend you know and then you don't, because that happened to me a few times.
I was going to say, I've like learned from that so many times, like pretending like I know what I'm doing, and then you just kind of end up looking more stupid because you actually like just should have been asking questions.
But then on the flip side of that, sometimes you do just have to do it. Like, sometimes you do just have to jump in and just try. Like, it's so funny. I started this company when I was 25, like got the idea. I'm 29 now. I feel like my being young, my not knowing, my not have done this before, like I had no idea of what was possible and what wasn't. And I think that there is something to be said for that,
Yeah, I love that. And you're only going to keep learning. And as you gain more, wisdom and knowledge into running a business and all of that, it'll get easier.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah, I was like, hopefully. Cool. So switching gears like a little bit again. So you talked about your podcast. I'd love to hear a little bit more. I believe it's called Period Talks. Just sort of like what content and type of guests and things you have on your podcast.
Yeah, it's called Period Chats. So like same thing, Period Chats podcast. And so we have a big array of guests, and I love learning. And so I think that the podcast, I started it during the pandemic when I couldn't connect with people in person. And I was like, how can I, 1, learn myself, 2, connect with amazing people, and 3, like share all of this education for free? Because like I really do think that the education about our bodies should be free. And
sure.
That's like where it came from. And we talk about everything. Like today I'm prepping, we're doing a podcast on intermittent fasting, and what we love to do at least once a month, a research review where we sit down and we're like, okay, here's a trending topic. Here's what the research says. And, we did holistic vaginal care was our last episode, because in summer that changes. We've done them on PCOS. We've done them on seed cycling. We've done our team just like asking questions about like, what did you not know before you started here? And so it's basically just a hormone, wellness, nutrition podcast where you can come and learn. And we do a lot of routine work too. I think that it's like hearing other people's routine to me is inspiring, because I think it's interesting taking something from each. But our real goal is that you come, we unpack the stigma, we unpack what's true and what's not true, and we talk to experts. But then we also talk to, people who have just experienced these things. And yeah, I love our podcast. It's one of my favorite parts of my job.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So like, obviously this podcast is called eComm Unfiltered. So it sounds like yours is a little bit about like periods unfiltered. essentially like a safe space to just come and talk about problems that women face. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, exactly. That was a better pitch than I give. I'm just going to take that pitch. That's great.
Yeah, just
Thank you.
A safe place to, come and chat about periods.
I love words, so I'll talk about it all day long. I'm like, it's this and it's that. And it's like, okay, how do you say that in one sentence? I'm like, I don't know. Let me ask ChatGPT.
A safe place to talk about periods. You're welcome.
I love it. Thank you.
Cool. So I want to get into like some kind of fun questions. So if Funkit had a mascot, what would it be and why? Like if you had like a little character mascot or something.
You know what it would be?
What?
It would be, I made this amazing vulva costume for Halloween.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
And I wore it all over Austin. And I've done this like multiple times. I think it would be that. And I can send you a photo of it because it's funny. It's very.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I had like a flesh tone like bodysuit and I like painted it and put ribbons on it and like put a scrunchie at the top. It was like, so I think that would be us. Like that would be the vulva costume is our mascot.
So were people just coming up to you and being like, why are you dressed like this? Like,
no, people loved it. People
really?
Loved it. They were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And like, some people were like, oh my God, like, why do you do that? And I'm like, why not?
Why not? Break the stigma, like get out there and just put it in people's faces is the only way to do it.
It's quite literally what I did. I've worn that thing a lot of places in Austin.
Amazing. Well, I kind of want you to wear it to like the next event we do with you or something.
Should totally do it. I need to remake it. It's been worn a lot now. I need to like remake it and like touch it up.
Perfect. Okay, another kind of like fun one. I think we talked about this on our panel discussion, but for our podcast listeners, can you tell us like a celebrity or influencer that you would love to have endorse your products and then why?
Oh, this is such a good question.
I know.
You know, it's so tough. I follow like a lot of, I feel like kind of niche influencers, and I feel like people like are like, what? There's one, it's called Melissa Does Yoga, and I love her. She does these amazing, like she has the most cool apartment and she just talks about like health and wellness and yoga. And then I also love Allison Cooch, who's like on TikTok, and she's actually pregnant right now. But she talks a lot about her period, but she's like married to someone in the NFL, but it's funny because they like call him Mr. Cooch. It's like a whole thing. So those are like my two people I follow. I don't follow a ton of like super huge influencers. Those are the two people I really like watching, and I enjoy their content.
Good. Cool. I'll have to look them up because I think I've heard of the second one you mentioned, but not the first one. So I'll have to look them up. Cool. So as we like kind of wrap up, what are your future goals and plans for Funkit? Just kind of moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest goal for Funkit is that, 10 years from now, that food-based supplements for the menstrual cycle and for hormones are just the norm. So like everybody understands like why food is better. They know how to get access to it, and we can like actually really make these products affordable for everybody. That's one of my big goals. And I think my second goal is that, we really have that built out community, and we have the education hub, and it's something that people can reference. And if they ever have questions, like they can come to us. So those are like my two big goals.
Great. Sounds like you got a lot of work ahead of you, but I think you're at a good starting point, and I already can kind of see it becoming a little more like, I don't want to say mainstream, but just people understanding like.
I would love for it to be mainstream.
Yeah.
Love
like
it.
I think it's
I would
becoming,
love it.
Right. Like it's just like a natural thing that we're like, oh, I got to do my seed cycling, or, oh, I got to take my,
Cycle bite.
Cool. So if there's like one thing that you could leave this podcast with, like saying that you want women to just really remember and know, what would that one thing be?
I think the one thing that I'm still working on, and I just like tell myself all the time, and I want everyone else to know, is like we are on a like longer 28-day cycle, and this world wasn't necessarily built for us. The 9-to-5 wasn't necessarily built to us. For us, not saying you can't do it. Women can do whatever they want to do, and women are incredible. But if things feel different at different times of your cycle, it's okay, and it's not your fault. Like I really believe in like, just writing one word a day, like in your period tracking app, and like seeing if there's patterns. Because for me, in my luteal phase, like the week before my period especially, I just had so much self-doubt. I would just feel like I was never measuring up. I couldn't perform in my workouts. I used to be like a long distance runner. I couldn't perform in my runs. And I wasn't taking my cycle into consideration. And I know some people are like, oh, it's so constraining to do your life around your cycle. It's really actually for me has been so freeing to realize like I can change my life to modify to me. And not everyone can do that, but just like tracking your cycle and really getting in tune, it's been a whole different level of confidence for me. And if I could give that to any other woman or anyone with a period, I'm just like, please, I want you to have this confidence and this self-knowledge. And, I want people to have the power back around their cycles. You don't have to strictly conform to like a patriarchal 9-to-5.
Oh, that's the greatest thing I've heard. Yeah. I think just like, knowing people like you and TikToks and things that I've seen, I've already started to make those efforts in my day to kind of be like, you know what, I'm feeling really crummy today because I'm at this part in my cycle and I'm supposed to feel crummy and I'm allowed to feel crummy. So just like really like understanding, your body and who we are as women. So what you just said is like very powerful.
And like productivity is relative. Like, there are certain times of your cycle, like in my follicular phase, I could stay up all night and work all the time, but like you're still getting the same amount done. Not that matters and not that productivity should be a measure of that, but it's one of those things where I think people think like, oh, if I take time to rest, I'm not going to be as productive. And actually, if you just work with your body, like you're going to feel so much more aligned and feel a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can definitely tell there's times when I'm like, I just need to take like a 10-minute break, even if it's 10 minutes just to like collect my thoughts. And then I'm so much more productive. So I've gotten better about just listening to my body and, again, needing to probably track my cycle a little better and that sort of stuff. And I think it'll get even better. But again, what you're doing is great. And that's really all the questions I had for you. If there's anything else you want to share with anybody, go ahead. Now is the time. Maybe where they can find your social channels or your website or anything like that.
If you're an e-commerce founder, I just have one tip that I like recently. I switched to Akendo for reviews. And I'm not affiliated with them at all, but I've been very impressed. Like we've doubled the amount of reviews we had from when we were using a different provider. So that. But then also where you can find us. So funkitwellness.com is our website. Funkit Wellness Instagram, on TikTok. My Instagram's Carbs and Kate, and my TikTok's just Kate Morton. I do a lot of like unhinged, kind of more period education on there. On TikTok, and then Instagram, is a little bit more toned down. So you can find me at either of those places. And if you have any period questions, just DM us. We'd love to talk about periods.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so, so much, Kate, for being here today. It's always great to chat with you, and I look forward to doing some more events and things with you in the future. Like she said, you can find her on her social and at funkitwellness.com, I believe, right?
Yep. You can find us all those places.
Find her, buy her products. Like she said, chat her. She's there to help. But again, this has been another episode of eComm Unfiltered. And thank you so much, Kate, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.